Namaste and greetings. Hello and welcome to the Center for Spiritually Integrated Arts, a Centers for Spiritual Living teaching center. I am Reverend Dr. Raymond Anderson, the founding minister and the spiritual director. If you have questions about what is a teaching center, who is Reverend Dr. Raymond Anderson, what is Centers for Spiritual Living, what is metaphysical spirituality, feel free to send an email to spirituallyintegratederts@gmail.com. The website with tons of information will be available soon. In the meantime, feel free to follow us, to join us, to subscribe via Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and our YouTube channel. For more information, as I said, send an email. Look for us. Join us. I look forward to chatting with you more very soon. Much love, appreciation, and all of that. Blessings.
Hey, what's up? You said what now? Oh, they're here. Oh, hey, what's up? Join us today, March 19th, immediately following the Sunday message. Soon as I say, and so it is, join us over in the Zoom room for our after Sunday message fellowship opportunity to dive into deeper conversation, to ask questions about the Sunday message or anything in general, and just simply to get together, to love up on one another. That's what community is. Now, if you don't already have the Zoom link to join us, then I suggest probably now you send an email to spirituallyintegratederts@gmail.com so that Tracy and or I can send you an email with the Zoom link so you can join us. And the Zoom link is the same Zoom link we use all the time. So feel free to, bookmark it or keep it somewhere safe. Now, if you're ready, which I'm thinking you are, let's go ahead and dive into our next chapter of this idea of what it means to cultivate authenticity. Today, we are talking about the paradox of what it means when we say boundaries build bridges. You said, what now? Boundaries build bridges. Now, I know normally we think of boundaries as the things that keep people away, and yet boundaries can actually be the thing that opens the door, that invites people in. We're going to talk about that. Are you ready? Now, while such things as walls and fences serve as physical boundaries, there are life affirming personal boundaries, self care related boundaries, spiritual boundaries, emotional boundaries that we are invited and encouraged to not only create, to not only have them, to not only establish them in our lives, but to communicate these boundaries to others, to hold others to the qualities, to hold others to the parameters of our boundaries. Because our boundaries, while seemingly to keep others away, what they are actually doing is creating a clearer path, a healthier path, a more wholesome and holy path for others to be able to interact with us in a manner that is loving, supportive, and authentic. So, in that, boundaries actually build bridges of connectivity. Dr. Holmes says, you rob no person when you discover your own good. You limit no person when you express a greater degree of livingness. You hinder no person's evolution when you consciously enter into the kingdom of your good and you possess that kingdom. You steward that kingdom. You reign over that kingdom right here, right now, today. You rob no one of their royalship, their divinity, their good. You rob no one of that by you tending to your own truth, accepting your spiritual magnificence. And yet, what we tend to do is we somehow think that by diving into our own good, there somehow is less for others. If I love fully, is there enough love to go around? If I have friends, is there enough friendship to go around? Is there enough goodness to go around? Breathe. Boundaries. See, the moment we limit, because to a certain degree, that's what a boundary is. A boundary limits the parameters. The boundary sets standards. And very often in our lives, we believe that our boundaries are to keep people out, as the robot in Lost in Space would say, danger, Will Robinson, danger. So we create these boundaries normally based upon collective consciousness. We create boundaries to keep ourselves safe. We don't create boundaries to love more. And when we create boundaries to keep ourselves safe based upon the collective consciousness, what we're actually doing is robbing ourselves of love. So boundaries are not necessarily to keep people out, to keep people away, to keep people at bay. It's not necessarily what boundaries are for. Boundaries are not like locking yourself into a safe to keep yourself safe. We lock money and jewelry into a safe and lock it away to protect it so it doesn't get stolen and robbed. Is that what we do with love, compassion, connection? Yeah, if we're honest, many of us do. So, this idea of boundaries, how do we create boundaries that actually open us up more, that give us the possibility of reaching out and reaching across rather than isolating ourselves on the other side of the wall, isolating ourselves on the other side of the barbed wire, isolating ourselves by putting a moat and sharks and piranhas and alligators around to keep everyone else out. How do we how do we invite people in? Because we do this thing to keep our belongings safe from theft, to keep our families safe from harm, to keep our own selves safe from harm. That's why we do this. We create these kinds of boundaries as protection and safety from some outside threat. Now, breathe and anchor into that for a moment, because if what we are going to do is create boundaries that are more effective, boundaries that connect, then it's important to understand and distinguish that there are boundaries that are non-life affirming in many ways, and there are boundaries that simply serve a particular purpose. Skin is a boundary. Without skin, a shower stall is a boundary, because without it, water goes everywhere. A fence simply marks off one's property from another's property. It might keep the neighbor's dog from digging up your garden, right? Serves a purpose. Doesn't mean you're not going to play with the dog. Doesn't mean, it doesn't mean any of that. The boundaries that create the frame and the structure of a car, it's protection. It serves a purpose. Without that, then what are you driving? You're just going down, what is it, a wagon now? I don't know, but it's not a car. Walls separate the living room from the dining room, or walls serve as the structure that holds up the, right? Like, it serves a purpose. Various kinds of boundaries serve a purpose that is not necessarily non-life affirming. It simply serves a purpose. So how do we distinguish between the boundaries that we have established to protect, to deny, to hurt and harm us, versus those that connect and encourage greater capacity for love and caring and connection? In a poem by Edwin Markham, he says, "He drew a circle that shut me out, heretic, rebel, a thing to flout. But love and I had will to win. We drew a circle and took him in." The circle is still a boundary. The circle that he drew kept me out. The circle that I drew took him in. Breathe. Because our invitation is to draw circles that encompass. Now, when we think of a circle, look in the upper corner of your screen. You see a circle with what appears to be a V. It's not really a V, but you get the concept, the idea. The Science of Mind teaching symbol. But there is a circle. The circle serves a purpose. The circle is not quantifying the limitation of what the divine is, but it identifies a certain idea, a certain image that we can grasp onto, that we then step into and say, I understand. God is a circle whose circumference is actually nowhere. The center is everywhere. So the circle that I drew that brought him in, the circumference is nowhere. The center is everywhere. Therefore, the circle that I drew was the center of the divine that brought him in, because where he is already the center as well. Breathe. How do we create circles that bring more in? How do we create circles that are welcoming? How do we create circles that are life affirming? How do we create boundaries that build bridges and give us the capacity to love and nurture more? Breathe. Now, in the grand scope of, mental health and psychology and sociology, there's a lot out there right now about boundaries. So let's talk about what are some of the benefits of boundaries from their paradigm. Improved emotional health, improved relationships, clear expectations for others. It prevents or greatly reduces the likelihood of burnout and more, decreasing stress. These are the benefits. Now, let's understand that when you are less likely to be moving through space and time from a space and time continuum of I'm burned out, I'm burned up, I'm tired. You have energy. If you have energy, then you're less likely to be irritated. If you have less stress, you're less likely to lash out because stress increases the possibility of being triggered, being set off, and blowing up. If you have greater respect from others because you have greater self-respect, you are less likely to disrespect another or even take disrespect into your own space. And all of these give us greater capacity to show up in the world as the divinely magnificent beings that we are. When you have greater health and well-being, does it not shine forth? Does it not show up when you enter a room, when your relationships are better and there's more love and more communication? Does that not affect how you now show up in your job or your bowling league or wherever that is? All of this is interconnected. Shouldn't it be? When we understand who and what we are, when we understand how to operate from a more life-affirming paradigm, shouldn't that show up in every area of our lives? So this idea of setting boundaries improves relationships, overall health and well-being, mental health and well-being, spiritual health and well-being. It improves our ability to communicate clearly, our ability to judge less, to discern more. And all of that greatly impacts and improves our lives overall. In a poem by Robert Frost, we dance round in a ring and suppose, but the secret sits in the middle and knows. We dance round in a ring and suppose, but the secret sits in the middle, in the center, and knows. Breathe, because we're going to get back to that in a second. Boundaries. Do not cross the line. Boundaries. Knowing where one person's emotions end, because many of us are so, quote unquote, sensitive and empathic that we take on another person's emotions. We cannot distinguish our feelings from theirs, our emotions from theirs, their anger from ours. We walk into a room and all of a sudden we're angry and we don't know why we're angry because we picked up on someone else's anger. And we didn't have the tools or techniques to be able to establish a boundary, so we did not make it our own. Breathe. Because if we're going to connect more, if we're going to live in a more life-affirming manner, then does it not benefit us to have a clear line of distinction between that and this? The secret sits in the middle and knows. But seek ye first the kingdom of God and God's righteousness, and all these things shall be added unto you. Nor will they say, hey, see here, or look there, for indeed the kingdom of God is within you. The secret is in the middle. The secret is at your center. The secret, and because God is the, remember, circle, circumference nowhere, center everywhere. Right where you are is the center. Right where you are is the middle. Right where you are, the secret is. Right where you are, the kingdom of God is. Right where you are. And all shall be added when you recognize and understand this. Don't look there for it. Don't look here for it. Be it and know. Breathe. Rachel Simmons says, when kindness comes at the expense of truth, it is not a kindness worth having. How many people use this exact, be kind? And what it is actually doing is creating greater consciousness of victimhood, greater victim consciousness. Because rather than standing in the truth, they're standing in a false idea of what kindness is. Because, see, sometimes kindness, a couple of weeks ago, didn't we not talk about James Baldwin, who said, if I love you, then it means I need to bring to your attention that which is not already in your attention. I need to bring to your consciousness that which you are unconscious about. I need to make you see what you are unable or unwilling to see if I love you. When kindness comes at the expense of truth, then that kindness is affording us the space of being within the lie. Breathe. So we have to choose. If I'm going to be kind, then my kindness must be rooted in truth. I must still move and have my beingness according to principle. I will not leave my values. I will not leave my truth in the car when I go to church. I will not leave it in the trunk when I go to work. I will not leave it here or there. I will not leave it anywhere, Sam, I am. I would not, could not. Yeah, I know, green eggs and ham, I know. But the idea is, why would I leave truth? Why would I leave spirit? Why would I leave spiritual practice? Why would I leave it somewhere to go here, to go there, as if somehow, oh, well, if I bring my philosophy, if I bring my spirituality, if I bring true kindness and truth into my workplace, I may get judged. I may get called Pollyanna. So what I do is I compartmentalize it and I leave my values, I leave my integrity, I leave my kindness, I leave my whatever it is, I leave that. It's time for us to stop doing that. That is neither healthy nor a demonstration of what it means to practice this teaching. So if I'm going to be authentic, if I'm going to cultivate authenticity, if I'm going to walk the walk, if I'm going to demonstrate what it means to be deeply rooted in truth, then my kindness must be rooted in that truth. My communication must be rooted in that truth. My way of showing up must be rooted in that truth. The secret sits in the middle and knows. Well, if I know, then why would I pretend that I don't know? Why would I, once again, leave my values in the car and pretend? What? For what purpose? To please some other people, to be codependent upon their approval. Is that what it means to be authentic? Is that what we are talking about? Is that what we desire? To cultivate that sense of inauthenticity or conditional authenticity? Breathe. Boundaries. We understand that there are times and there are people when there are no boundaries. People will show up and they will tell you all kinds of things. This is what I want. I need you to do me a favor. I need you to lend me some money. Can you do this for me? Or they won't even ask, can you do this for me? They'll just tell you, do this for me. Some will say, I thought we were friends. Others will say, give me love, give me money, give me a hug, give me. Then others will say, don't be so selfish. And then others will say, if you loved me, ... And so our boundaries protect us so that this kind of abuse can't touch us. And ultimately, what happens is when we establish these boundaries, this young woman in this bubble, one of two things is going to happen. The people who are harassing her because they don't understand her boundaries are either going to fade away and leave her alone, or they're going to change their paradigm to then be included within her bubble. She will draw a circle that pulls them in because they will no longer say, I want. They will say, what can I offer? They will no longer say, I thought we were friends. They will say, we are friends. How may I support you? They will no longer say, well, if you loved me. They will say, because I love you, and they will be drawn in. This is how boundaries truly and effectively build bridges. Now, in this idea, because many of us, that young woman, and I know for, listen here, let me tell you, for a long time in my life, yeah, that was me. I didn't even have the bubble. I just, what do you need? What can I give you? What can I do for you? Okay. And I was the proverbial, okay, fine, go ahead. Well, you just bit me here last week. Can you suck blood from this side this time? My neck hurts. Can you just take it from the vein this time? Can you? I just gave and gave and gave and gave till I was depleted and then in the hospital, till I reached a breaking point physically, emotionally, with my health. I developed an ulcer, migraine headaches, all kinds of things. Many of us have a very difficult time establishing and setting boundaries. I invite you to visit this website and check out some of the books that they talk about in terms of how do we set boundaries? What is the purpose of setting boundaries? So now think about the following are some common signs that happen in your life when there is a lack of emotional effective boundaries. People feel emotionally or physically unsafe. You don't make time for your own self-care. You overschedule yourself so you're always on the run, always something to do, more and more to do for others, not yourself. You feel resentful. You feel overwhelmed. People take advantage of your kindness. They see kindness as a weakness. Someone mistreats you and you don't speak up. There's microaggressions and you don't speak up. You go to work or you're with your family or whatever and you feel burnt out. You can't even enjoy the festivities because you're just running on fumes, emotionally or physically or both. Any of these and all of these are symptoms and signs. They are signposts pointing the way, saying, Danger, Will Robinson, if these are showing up in your life, you more than likely want to sit down and assess, acknowledge, and recognize you have a problem when it comes to setting boundaries. Breathe. Another great website where licensed psychotherapist Sharon Martin shares this. What are the 7 boundaries? So, what boundaries do you need? One way to identify your boundaries is to think about the areas of your life where you are experiencing problems. Woo! Do you experience problems with your money? Then look at boundaries regarding that. Experiencing issues in your love life, your marriage, your parent child, whatever it is. Look at the problems that you are experiencing and then think about the boundaries that are connected to that. Do you feel uncomfortable around coworkers? Do you feel resentful of your mother or stepmother or some other family member? Each of these life problems is telling us that we are lacking effective and life-affirming boundaries in some area of our lives. And she says 7 types of boundaries that you may need: physical boundaries, sexual boundaries, emotional or mental boundaries, spiritual or religious boundaries, financial and material boundaries, boundaries regarding time, and then non-negotiable boundaries. Once again, I invite you to go to the website to read more about this, but simply in this moment right now, thinking, what do these boundaries mean to me? How do I live my life in a manner that demonstrates life-affirming and effective boundaries in these areas? Number 4, when she says spiritual or religious boundaries, what does that mean? Especially since what we are dealing with right here is spiritual and religious. What does that mean to have a spiritual or religious boundary? Financial boundaries. Breathe. Because until we can identify it, we can't change it, we can't heal it. Brene Brown says, when we fail to set boundaries and hold people accountable, woo, Do we hold people accountable? Okay, anyhow. When we fail to set boundaries and fail to hold people accountable, we feel used, abused, and mistreated. This is why we sometimes attack who they are, which is far more hurtful than addressing the initial behavior or a choice. They mistreated us and we attack, which is very often far more traumatizing and hurtful, far more than it could be if we simply addressed and held people accountable for the initial deed in the first place. Well, why would this be true? Because oftentimes what we do is someone will do something or say something and we hold a grudge and it festers until eventually it explodes. So is it not healthier to address the boiling pot before the boiling pot boils over or explodes? Is it not healthier to put the fire out as soon as the spark is right there? Put it out rather than wait until it's a full all on 12 alarm fire, which then means the structure must be demolished because it's unsustainable. Which is healthier? So, once again, by establishing a boundary that is effective and life affirming, we are actually demonstrating more love and compassion, more grace than if we establish a boundary that keeps people at bay. Because there's no need for me to address whatever it is. There's no need for me to address any of the problems that we talked about on the slide before. There's no need to address any of those issues. I'm not connected to these people. I have no desire to be connected to them. So I need not forgive them. I need not forgive me. I need not forgive them. All I need to do is put them on the other side of this and blow it up, build a wall, put a moat, keep them away. And then I'm free. I need not forgive. And then I'm free. I don't have to see them ever again. And I'm good. No, you're not, because the poison is already in you. Yeah, you don't see them again, but you still have, it's still there. Breathe. Boundaries build bridges. What is a bridge? A bridge is a structure that is built to span some physical space without blocking the way that is underneath. Okay? It is constructed for the purpose of providing passage over that expanse, over that obstacle, water, a valley, whatever that is, over that obstacle, which is usually something that it otherwise is difficult to cross or impossible to cross. So is it impossible? It may feel impossible to cross whatever hurt or harm was done. It feels impossible to cross that. But forgiveness is the bridge that gives us the ability to cross it. And that, once again, does not necessarily mean that we become best friends and best buddies with that person. But what it means is we free ourselves and we now have free passage to roam and live our lives where we are no longer restricted by the obstacle of the initial trauma. Bridges connect us by providing the passage, by providing the pathway, by providing the way forward, by providing the way for us to evolve and grow rather than being trapped and limited. Breathe. Bridges are connections and offer us greater ways to connect with ourselves, with one another, and ultimately with the divine. Dr. Holmes says, you need not ask what others have done or how they have done it. Be yourself and express life as you find it, as you choose it. Never imitate. Trust the self. Find the self in God and God in the self. They are one and the same. So recognize that, acknowledge that, live that, and stop trying to be like the Joneses. Have your lawn like the Joneses. Have your 2.5 children like the Joneses. have the same socioeconomic background as the Joneses or the whomevers, the Musks, the Gates. Don't ask, what have they done? How did they do it? What is mine to do? How do I create the bridge between where I am and where I desire to experience life? Breathe. Because we spend a lot of time trying to imitate others. Spend a lot of time trying to imitate others, trying to do things to garner love, trying to do things to earn money, rather than when we truly trust who and what we are, then we find that what we are seeking, as someone once said, what you seek is seeking you. We find that it is already present. We create greater avenues for the presence of it, for the experience of it. No matter what it is, we create greater avenues of experiencing it when we know that it's right where we are and that we don't have to bargain or compete or imitate with something outside of us to get it. You can't run out of God. Breathe. Now, I mentioned James Baldwin earlier. Yes, we're going to talk about him again, because remember that thing said, if your kindness is at the expense of truth, then it's not a kindness worth having. Baldwin says, we can disagree and still love each other. Bridge. Unless your disagreement is rooted in my oppression and denial of my humanity and right to exist, and if that is the case, then this is not a bridge that either of us need to cross. Breathe. Because there are some relationships that simply aren't healthy. Now, that does not mean you don't bless them. That does not mean you don't have, quote unquote, a divine love for them. But that also means you do not invite them into your home. You do not invite them into your, now I know this may be controversial because, we talk about loving everyone and being open and welcoming and supporting of all people. Yeah, I hear that. I hear that. Suppose I'm an arsonist and I'm an arsonist. And we've had the conversation. You're like, Ray, can you watch the kids and the dog? Yes. But you see me sitting there playing with my lighter. And you're like, bruh, can you put the lighter away? Like, I trust you. Cool. Like, I don't, I understand you've been arrested for arson and blah, 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 blah. But I trust you. We're friends. Cool. I hear you. Do you still have me watch the kids and the dog? Or do you put me out of your house because I'm no longer safe? We can agree to disagree. We can disagree about all kinds of things. We can disagree about politics. We can disagree about how to raise children. We can disagree about a whole bunch of things. But the moment that disagreement is rooted in my oppression or your oppression or someone's oppression, because I am deeply anchored in truth and practicing principle, that is not a relationship we will have, which means that is a bridge that needs to be burned. Sometimes the most loving thing we can do is burn a bridge, which ultimately is establishing a boundary. However, we must know what our motivation is. Is it to safeguard our energy, to defend the ego, to avoid forgiving, to escape responsibility, to metaphysically or emotionally practice malpractice? Burn in order to build, not simply to destroy. See, because by burning the bridge, by creating this boundary, ideally, one, it gives you the space to live your best life and do what you need to do. But it also affords this person time and space for them to now reconcile and understand what happened and what do I choose to do. We are not meant to be metaphysical, emotional, spiritual doormats for people to wipe their shoes on. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is establish a boundary by burning the bridge. But know your motivation. Why are you doing it? Dr. Holmes says the divine pattern would be imperfect without you. Dare to be yourself. Stand in wonder before the majesty and might, the beauty and the power of that divine presence which seeks expression through and as your life. Spirit, in, through, and as, dare to be it. Spirit, in, through, and as, stand in the wonder, the majesty, and the power of it. The universe, living, moving, and having its being, expressing through and as you. Dare to be it. Breathe. Because if we are allowing other people to deny us that, then we are denying ourselves. We are agreeing with them that we are less than, that we don't deserve the fullness of. And when it says the divine pattern would be imperfect without you, what this is saying is that somehow if God did not have you, then God would be less than what it is, because that would mean there's two, not one. That would mean the divine, that is all there is, would somehow now be broken because there's it and you. Imperfect. It's not what it can't be. There's only the infinite oneness. You cannot be separate from it. You cannot break yourself off from it. Therefore, all of this, the divine wonder, beauty, all of it is already. Seek ye first the divine beauty, and all else will be added. Seek ye first to stand in the majesty and might, the beauty, the power, and the love, and all else will be added. Seek ye first to recognize and realize who you truly are. Dare to be it. And watch the wonder that occurs in your life as a result. The divine pattern. There are patterns all over the place. Blueprints are patterns. The very body and the way that it operates with cells and bones and structures, all of it, the way atoms and molecules, all of it operates based upon a pattern, a divine pattern at that. And exactly what you are is that divine pattern. Holmes said, what is true about God is true about you. Live like that's the truth. Move and have your beingness like you understand that that is the truth. Breathe. Brene Brown says, compassionate people ask for what they need. They say no when they need to, and when they say yes, they mean it. They're compassionate because their boundaries keep them out of and away from resentment. Asking for what you need, being willing to say no. Do you ask for what you need? Do you know what you need? Do you know what you want? Do you know what you want? How do you ask for what you need if you don't even know what you want? You don't know what you need. Do you know what you need? You can't ask for what you want if you don't know what you need. You can't ask for what you need if you don't know what you need. You know, oftentimes when Tracy's getting ready to go to the grocery store, she'll say, so what are we out of? What do we need in the house? And I'll say, I don't know. One of us, usually her, will go look through the cabinets to find out what do we need. We need eggs. We need almond milk. What do we need? And then once the needs are met, she'll say, is there something specific you want from the store? Well, I can't answer that if I don't know what I want. Now, suppose I do know what I want. Am I willing to ask for it? Are you willing to ask for what you want? Are you willing to ask for what you need? Then do it. Ask, but ask the way that Yeshua invited us to ask. Do you know what that asking is? Do you know what that method is? Yeshua, Jesus, said, I tell you, you can pray for anything. And if you believe that you have received it, it will be yours. It is yours. You have to ask. We are invited to ask as though we have. Don't ask for health as if health is outside of you. Ask knowing, ask as though you already have the thing you are asking for. And you shall have it. Breathe. This could be a whole different talk. This is a very difficult thing for many of us to do, to ask for what we want, to ask for what we need. And yet it is the precise thing that gives us the opportunity to build the bridges between ourselves and our loved ones, between ourselves and ourselves, between ourselves and the universe. We establish our foundation by knowing what is my mental equivalent. What are the thoughts that I think, the words that I use, the emotions and feelings that I have, and the ways that I show up? Because if I don't know what I'm doing, then I'm going to be far more likely to operate based upon someone else's pattern. Not a divine pattern, but a collective consciousness pattern, a pattern rooted in lack, scarcity, fear, traumatization, victimization, etc. What is my foundation? And then I have to make the necessary connections, establish the necessary boundaries. I have to ask for what I want, and I have to be willing to ask for what I need. I have to build the life that we desire, build the life that we deserve, build the life that you desire and deserve, so that you can live out loud and love out loud as the divinely magnificent being that you are. Breathe. This week's journal questions, or if you join the Thursday night study group, the questions that they go over. Number one, are there areas in your life that you are aware of where you need to set limits? Now, I want you to go revisit both of the slides from earlier. Do you have a problem with boundary setting? And what are the 7 boundaries? Revisit those 2 slides and ask, are there areas in your life that you are aware of where you are invited to set limits? 2, what ways do you feel that people should treat one another? What are those ways? What are these ways that you expect or want to be treated? The golden rule, do unto others as others would. How do you expect to be treated? How do you want to be treated? When do you not treat others as you want to be treated? You want to be listened to? Do you listen to others? You want your space respected. Don't just run up on me and hug me. And elbow tap. That's Tracy. Elbow tap. High five from a distance. Do you now? Tracy definitely does it. Like there for that one, there ain't no way that Tracy's not going. Anyway, stop laughing, Tracy. What ways do you feel that people should treat other people? What does it mean to be kind towards others? Do you believe that people should be kind towards others, etc.? What are some areas where you feel that others have more control of your time and your energy than you do? Their needs supersede yours. Their time constraints and expectations supersede yours. What ways can you draw or redefine clearer boundaries in those areas? Ooh. What might be possible if you were to communicate your boundaries in a mindful and clear way to a friend, family member, coworker, colleague, whoever it is, neighbor, doesn't matter. What might be possible if you were to communicate your boundaries in a compassionate and mindful and clear manner to these other individuals? What might be possible in that relationship? And what can you say to any of them and all of them to start this conversation? Breathe. This week's declaration affirmation, I will say it first, then if you feel in alignment with us, say it on the second go round. I share my boundaries, which build bridges that authentically connect with others. Together. I share my boundaries, which builds bridges that authentically connect with others. Breathe. as we go into our closing prayer. Simply breathing and anchoring into this moment, recognizing the isness and allness of love itself, that divine pattern, which is the very universal blueprint of all that we are and all that we ever can be and all that we ever will be, for it is all there is. And so in this moment, we build the life that we desire and deserve authentically based on this divine pattern. We live the life that we desire and deserve based on this divine template, this divine blueprint, this divine pattern of being and existing, this divine pattern that is the universe. We live out loud. We love out loud. We speak clearly. We establish boundaries that are life affirming, that build connections, connectivity that is authentic and loving and generous and kind. I breathe knowing that the law says yes to this always, and that because of this divine and sacred yes, it's already answered prayer. And so as we close, we recognize that this divine pattern is inescapable. It shows up in our thoughts when we think it. It shows up in our words when we speak it. It shows up in our emotions and feelings when we open up to feel them. And it shows up in our actions when we act upon them. And as I said, the law says yes. That means this prayer is done. We live our lives in such a manner as this. Breathe. And so it is. Namaste, blessings, much love. See everybody over in Zoom. Take care. Much love.